Last week, Unity Engine announced that if you personally or your company invested thousands of dollars and man hours into developing using their technology, you'd be afforded the privilege of paying Unity a fee of 20 cents per user install. That's 20 cents per install. They posted this announcement on their company's blog, extolling the virtues of their rug pull on developers. They basically declared that anyone who has or is currently developing a game in Unity is a sucker, and it's time for them to pay up. Now, I don't think people who are developing a game in Unity are suckers at all. But with this announcement, folks in the game dev scene were in shock. John Riccitiello reached out to Unity for clarification, and it was just as shocking and unfair as it seemed at face value. If a player deletes a game and reinstalls it, that's 2 installs and 2 charges. That's 40 cents. If they install the game on 2 different devices, that's 2 installs and therefore 2 charges. Thankfully, charity games and bundles were exempted from these fees, but that opens a whole other can of worms. How would they differentiate between charity installs and regular? Would the exemption only cover a few installs or the first device? How about games distributed through something like Game Pass? As you can imagine, the backlash against such an unfair, unwarranted, and greedy scheme was pretty loud. So then, in an attempt to save face, Unity suggested that maybe Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo were going to have to pony up the runtime fee, picking a fight with the big dogs with all the money, thus being able to position themselves in prime victimhood state when these big players decided, no, we're not going to do that because that's ridiculous. Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo would not subsidize this goalpost moving shite. If Unity were successful in this move and the big 3 sanctioned it, then every other engine developer out there would be looking for a piece of that same pie. Hello, Epic Games. Seeking to change the narrative surrounding this runtime fee fiasco, Unity published a zero-commitment apology littered with bureaucratic corporate speak and soft, empathetic, meaningless language. Quote, "We have heard you. We apologize for the confusion and angst the runtime fee policy we announced on Tuesday caused. We are listening, talking to our team members, community, customers, and partners, and we will be making changes to the policy. We will share an update in a couple days. Thank you for your honest and critical feedback." I'm going to be straight up here. Very little is going to change here. This is just their way of getting a handle on the narrative here. They're using this to try and influence people who don't know anything about game development, and they're trying to quiet the criticism of this move. See, Unity Engine wants it both ways. They want game developers to pay this fee, and they want people to think that they actually give a crap about their developers. But mark my words here. Unity Engine is committed to imposing this zero value-added tax scheme on their captive audience. They may make it so that only the first install on every device is taxed, but they're going to continue with this idea. They've already done the 2024 growth projections that included this zero value-added tax, and they can't just leave that potential revenue stream for doing nothing unplundered. This is all thanks to John Riccitiello. The fact that he's the CEO of Unity should be enough for any sane person to run away as if there's a serial killer after them. Mr. Riccitiello is the unindicted mob boss of the video game industry. He's the mastermind that landed EA the coveted title of worst company in America 2 years in a row. He's the guy who ruined Dead Space 3, The Sims 3, and SimCity 2013. The series No More Heroes has a villain named after Riccitiello because Suda51 worked for him and thought he was an awful boss. He was one of the first investors in Oculus VR, and judging by his track record, I would not be surprised if he was one of the primary movers in Facebook's acquisition. He served on the Entertainment Software Association's board, which is the organization that ran E3 into the ground, and he served on the ESRB's board of directors. And I'm not saying that Riccitiello is the sole reason for the ESA or the ESRB's corruption, but But whatever your opinion on the plethora of seedy allegations against old Ricky Boy, the facts are clear. This guy is one of the harder mini bosses in the gaming industry. I don't want to call him the final boss of the gaming industry because that gives him too much credit. But he's out to do nothing but corrupt and ruin gaming and get golden parachute payouts for his trouble. The fact is, old Ricky Boy needs to be permabanned from any position of leadership in any business venture incorporated or operating within the United States. I mean, this guy needs to be blacklisted for his efforts to enshittify everything he touches. Now, enshittification, if you're not aware, is the technical term for a company deliberately making their products and services worse and then selling the original, now marked as improved version back to you at a higher price. Often you'll see this practice with a company that has a captive audience, a company like, I don't know, maybe Unity Engine, who has their developers locked in due to a huge investment of their company's time in what is essentially Unity's proprietary technology, where the cost of switching to new tech from a different vendor would be much higher than the burden of just paying the rug pull fee or closing up shop. And it's not just Unity Engine. There's many other examples of enshittification, from Facebook to Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, but also Disney Plus, Netflix, Hulu, pretty much every single cryptocurrency. The list goes on and on. And boy howdy does John H. Riccitiello enshittify everything he touches. Now, I'm not saying that he's the sole reason for the organizations he's been associated with having all become cancerous succubi, but what I am saying is that he's a scumbag, and he always has been. Now, I feel for those devs who were deceived by Unity Engine's long con here. I hope that Unity Engine gets investigated over this, because this all seems like an innovative approach to a Ponzi scheme and nothing more. And I hope that Unity goes out of business and the gaming industry realizes just how toxic Riccitiello is and steers clear of him in the future. But I also have to say that I've heard a bunch of people comment, well, I guess it's time to learn Unreal Engine. Have you learned nothing? If Unity Engine can do this, Unreal Engine can do it too. In fact, this is something I wouldn't be surprised to see Unreal do to developers who aren't publishing their Unreal Engine games on Epic Store. You're publishing your Unreal games on Steam, Xbox, and PlayStation, but not the Epic Store? You're gonna have to pay a runtime fee. But we'll gladly waive the fee if you also publish on our store. That totally seems like something Tim Sweeney would do, I'm just saying. If indie devs can learn one thing from this complete fiasco, it's that open source, freely licensed game engines are the only way that we can move forward. If you're paying a Unity fee, subscribe to Godot's Patreon instead, at 2/3 the rate even, and improve the game engine that is fundamentally incapable of this kind of rug pull. But anyway, I want to know your thoughts on this story. How do you think Unity is going to modify their policy? Do you think Unreal would pull some kind of shenanigans like this too? Leave me a comment. I'd love to hear from you. Now, I think that's going to do it for this video, but I want to thank my friends over on Patreon. These guys make what I do here a reality. Also, my YouTube members, you guys are amazing. It's because of these fine folks I'm able to continue doing what I do here. If you believe in the work that I'm doing, consider making a monthly pledge over on Patreon, or you can become a YouTube member. The links are below. And thanks. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with all the fun stuff we're doing here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.